All righty. Hello, welcome, ninth grade contemporary world problem students. Um, Thanks very much for your participation today in the survey to start off this unit. That's been really helpful for me in preparing what we're doing next, and also in including what to put in this video assignment. So today's going to be a quick overview of the conflict. There are going to be questions embedded into the video, and that'll be your assignment for today, is to complete those questions in preparation for and to get feedback on the assessment that we're going to be taking later this week. So we're going to have an overview of the conflict, and let's see here, I should put some little dots on here. We're going to have an overview of the conflict. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the human rights violations that are occurring, as well as the attempts to promote human rights. That dynamic between human rights violations, and how they're being promoted is really kind of the guiding question for this unit. Before we wrap up, though, we'll also talk about how we're going to be assessing and the standards and rubrics we're going to be using. Okay, so first things first, overview of the conflict. What is going on? Whoopsie. Put it like that. What is going on is that you've got Ukraine here in yellow, that is kind of in Eastern Europe, and here's Ukraine here, and then this is Russia here, which is the main part of the former Soviet Union, and here is Vladimir Putin, who is right here. He is a dictator for Russia. He has been president of Russia for, I don't know, most of my life. For a while he was kind of like, oh yeah, I'm elected. I'm an elected president, and but now it's kind of like he's not even pretending anymore. He just rules Russia. There's an oligarchic state where he and his friends. He's actually former KGB, to be entirely honest. He and his friends own all of the oil companies, all of the TV companies, all of the different big industries are owned by him and his friends. They're called the oligarchs. Now, the other thing to consider is where he's at. So these countries here, and I guess you can see it up here too, are the NATO countries, and so there's a big push for the countries of Europe, these ones here, which are kind of traditional NATO countries, to continue to kind of provide uh, you know um, protection as a part of the NATO alliance to these places too. Russia, on the other hand, is really against this idea. It does not want additional NATO countries closer and closer. Particularly, Putin thinks of Ukraine as traditionally Russian. In particular, this part down here, the Crimean Peninsula, it is traditionally a part of Russia, going back to a previous empire, Catherine the Great, who annexed it at one point. And so he's got a lot of ideas about how this is his land, or rightfully belongs to Mother Russia. And so about 10 months ago, they had a big buildup on the eastern part of the country, and then they ended up invading. Let me see if I can bring that closer up. If you saw this map, it's actually a GIF, or like it updates. It was posted to the Monday lesson, the hook. It's really interesting to see, because as the days tick past, you can see that it started off with Russia invading large parts of the country. And in particular, they were trying to go for Kiev, the capital. They were pushed back, and they never made it into Kiev. And so the Ukrainian forces then pushed back, and now they're actually making pretty large inroads back into this eastern territory that had been conquered by Russia recently. Um, the the impact of that, has been that many people have left their home. So millions and millions of people have left Ukraine, just with backpacks and jackets, and are now living outside the country as refugees. In addition, um, the impact on the society has just been profound. Russia is using a lot of kind of general sort of attacks, so attacking civilian infrastructure, apartment buildings, power plants. So these are not normally considered, legit targets for a just war or for an invasion, and is one of the biggest, violations of human rights is that they're using missiles to attack the cities with missiles coming out of the sky. Other human rights violations have been more just individual killings. So they've found mass graves uh, of people that have been in occupied Ukraine and have resisted, or just been in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so these atrocities are, like I said, being documented. And in some cases, they're actually trying some of the individuals. They're putting them up in court. So that's, I guess, what we'll get down to, down here. Trying to think of other, kind of general human rights violations. There's also use of starvation. So they surrounded cities and using starvation as a weapon. And so that was happening, especially down here in the South. There was a city here that they just surrounded for a long time, and they just never let any food or medicine or things come in, and so that's considered a human rights violation as well. So the question then is what has been done to promote human rights, and there's a lot of things. One is NATO, which is the North American Treaty Alliance. Has really supported the Ukrainians with weapons, and intelligence and money and logistics. So they're really supporting the the Ukrainian people with everything except our own troops. So we've sent in, United States and others have sent in weapons, they've sent in money, they've sent in technical support, lots and lots of weapons, more weapons, like just an insane amount of weapons. But the reason that the United States is not sending in our own troops is because Russia is nuclear powered. And there is a very big concern that if the United States got involved by just putting boots on the ground, so to speak, by invading the country or by putting troops in the ground, that it would escalate the conflict. And so our government, as well as the rest of NATO, has said we're not gonna support the people of Ukraine with our own troops, but we will support them in every other way. And actually, Ukraine, I don't actually think Ukraine has asked for troops. They want weapons. They want at one point they wanted a no-fly zone, but that didn't happen. Other things that are being done to promote human rights is gathering evidence. And this is what you saw in the video from yesterday that's also posted to the document that you'll see today. So they're gathering evidence of these atrocities, and then they're actually bringing people to court. So if there are individuals that are caught in the battlefield that committed atrocities, they're actually being tried for human rights violations. But more importantly, they're gathering this evidence, hopefully hoping that in the future there will be a tribunal and people that were higher up in the decision-making tree would be called forth in front of an international tribunal and held accountable. And one of the best ways to do that is to have really specific evidence showing that these were the commands that were given, and that they knew what they were doing was harming civilians, that kind of thing. The other thing that's happening to promote human rights is sanctions and economics. And so what's happening there is all of the countries of the world pretty much have kind of tied together and said, you know what, if you invade another country, you don't get to trade with us. And there's exceptions to this, and there's complexity to it, but for the most part, aside from a couple of countries like China and India that have had a little bit of trade but are being pressured, a couple of other countries around the world that are still trading with Russia, for the most part, all of its normal trading partners, um, especially because Russia has a lot of oil, are no longer trading with Russia. And so you can see that the value of the Russian economy is just tanking. In addition, all of the sanctions are targeting against any of Vladimir Putin and his friends. So any of their assets that they held abroad are all frozen and that kind of thing. They're not allowed to travel outside of Russia. There was a whole bunch of yachts that were being seized all over the world. All these like luxury yachts are being seized. Not that that's a big deal, but they're trying in any way they can to to make this isolation stick, as well as with the internet. So making sure that people in Russia know what their government is doing, and aren't being kind of given a lot of misinformation. Okay, so that's kind of the overview of the conflict in general, the human rights violations that have occurred, and then how the human rights are being promoted. Before we wrap up, I want to have a quick moment for assessment and rubrics. So here's the two standards that we're assessing on. And actually, before we do that, let me show you what the assessment, what the assignment for today looks like. I would go here. So today's assignment is here, and what I want you to be able to do is to start getting into this document right here. And this is a shared document, so we're all going to be using it. It's going to be a place where you can access information, and then you can share with each other the the evidence and quotations and thoughts that you find. So we're going to have a bunch of different sources. So far, I've got 4. Right. This was the video from yesterday, from Monday. But I found another Newsella article, as well as 2 documents down here. That's funny. That's not showing up quite right. Um, and then beneath each one is going to be a space for a quote and makes me think. What that means is that you guys are going to be able to kind of work with each other, even though you're remote, even though you're working asynchronously. So if you read this article and you find a good quote, you could put it here, and then you could add in a little of your own commentary here. Um, these are the resources that we're going to be using for the assessment. And so the more that you guys are able to help each other out, that just makes the assessment easier for everyone. One thing I'll say about shared documents is be kind. Don't delete something that someone else had put on there. Also, it's a Google Doc, so I can see exactly who put what there at any time. The history button is very, very clear. So if there's anything that's inappropriate or bullying or anything like that, it's very, very clear as to who was typing what and when. Not that I've come across that at HBA in any way, but I just like to point out that this is a shared document. It's not a copy that you've made for yourself. It's a document that we're all using together. And so as such, we should just be a little careful with it. Okay, so that's how we're going to get started with the assessment. Later on in the week, you'll be using those resources to answer that question. Um, Actually, this question here. How is the war in Ukraine an example of human rights being violated? Could it also be an example of human rights being promoted? And so let me show you the 2 standards that we're going to be assessing, and they're here. So this first one is analyze historical, contemporary, and emerging means of changing society, promoting the common good, and protecting rights. So your job is to yeah, it's the same thing. Analyze historical, contemporary, and emerging means of changing societies, promoting the common good, and protecting rights. And then if you're going really well, then you're evaluating how well it works. If you're approaching or beginning, you're more like listing and identifying. Okay. Next one is going to be this one, and it's about sourcing. And so we're getting into some research standards. So you're going to be gathering relevant information from multiple sources. I guess it's the same down here, gathering relevant information from multiple sources, representing a wide range of views, using the origin, authority, structure, context to guide your selection. So this is a standard about assessing sources and about gathering information from a lot of different standards, which is why we have this document down here. We're going to be gathering information from lots of different sources, and we're going to be doing that part together. You'll then be able to assess the reliability of those sources, and then use them in your own work to then answer that question up above. Okay, thanks so much for your participation and your attention today with this kind of long-winded assessment, this long-winded video. Please let us know how we can be helpful. This isn't something you have to do on your own, and so we really want to work with you. Easiest way to get in touch with me and Ms. Bedell is screenshot or a picture on your phone, text or email us, show us what you're looking at and what questions you have, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.